All right, we're at the top of the hour. We're going to go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome on behalf of Tag Management and Core Associates. For this week's webinar, Tag Management has invited Core Associates as a special guest. My name is Leanne Oskanian, and joining me as our subject matter expert, also from Core Associates, is Steve Jordan. I want to thank you all for joining us this morning. Our session is the second in a series that TAG launched last Wednesday and is going to continue throughout the month of June. Just a couple of housekeeping items. Because we only have a half an hour, I'm going to ask that everyone hold their questions until the end. If you want to jot them in the chat box, please feel free to do that, but we'll make sure that we save some time at the end of the session to address any questions that come up. The focus of the series is paper-free and automated solutions for the procure-to-pay process. And considering recent events, many people were faced with a new virtual reality and trying to adapt working remotely. And for some, that was a fairly smooth transition, but many people and companies were scrambling, partly due to heavily based paper processes. At Core Associates, our focus is around providing tools and automated solutions that enable you to get your job done as quickly and efficiently as possible from virtually anywhere. Also making sure that you're connected, organized, and the information is accessible and available to all stakeholders. Throughout the series, we're going to look at the entire procure-to-pay process from the time you create a requisition or a purchase order through to making the payment. There are 4 steps in the process that we're going to focus on, and they can all be done without touching any paper. This here is a schematic of the process. I'm going to start over here on the left with step 1. Requisitions, purchase orders, and your receiving tickets, they can be created electronically using our Core Cloud Systems Field Purchasing Solution. We also call it CCS for short. The documents, they can be created from anywhere on any device, and CCS is integrated with both Timberscan and Sage 300 CRE. Once your POs are created, they get sent to Sage 300 to create the commitments, and then the electronic purchase order is sent into Timberscan. When the receiving is completed, that's also done in Core Cloud Systems, and then the receiving documents also get sent to Timberscan electronically. And then you have both your purchase order and your receiving ticket in Timberscan as what we call supporting documents. So when your invoice comes in electronically, you would consume that here into Timberscan, and then you can match that invoice to your purchase order and your receiving ticket to do either your 2-way or 3-way match. Timberscan also serves as your central repository for storing and managing all of your invoices and documents, as well as the mechanism for approving the invoices and documents. Right, you can capture and route and approve invoices and documents within the system. And then once those invoices are approved, they flow here into this 3rd step right into Sage without rekeying any data. Right, so you're virtually no paper has been exchanged at any point so far. Now, when you're ready to pay those invoices, that's where avidxchange comes into play in this 4th step. We've partnered with avidxchange to be able to provide a complete end-to-end paperless process. When you're making your payments, you can leverage the power of the AvidPay network. There's over 6,000 companies that are in the network currently, and that's growing every day. When a new company starts using the AvidPay network, we estimate about 35 to 40% of the companies that they do business with are already in the network. And those that aren't, the Avid service team does all the legwork to contact those companies. They reach out to determine, what their preferred payment method is. And then Avid manages the payment process, but you still ultimately have control over when those payments are released. So you can log into their online payment portal to approve payments. And then you always have the flexibility to make payments on premise if you need to. So in addition to being able to process payments from anywhere, saving money on check stock, postage, ink, time stuffing envelopes and sorting, there's also the opportunity for you to earn rebates with Avid. So, that can offset other costs within your business. The focus of today's session is the purchasing process. So Steve is going to walk us through how you can eliminate your paper-based process using Core Cloud Systems, which was developed by Core Associates. Before I turn it over to Steve, I just want to walk through the series lineup. So next Wednesday, I'll be walking us through a presentation of Timberscan 300, essentially picking up in the process where Steve is going to leave off this week. I'm going to be focusing on the automation of the AP approval process, including how the PO and the receiving tickets from Core Cloud Systems can be matched within Timberscan. And I'll also be touching on mobile invoice approvals. We'll end the series on Wednesday, June 24th with another session on Avid Payment Solutions and moving to electronic payments. Steve, I'm going to hand it off to you.
All right, I need to share my screen. Okay. Can you hand that screen off to me, or there we go. All right, so share screen. And I am screen 1, I want screen 2. There we go. All right, and it's shared. All right, thank you, Leanne. Today we're going to talk about the first step of the purchasing process, and that's a purchase order. With Core Cloud Systems, we actually have 3 solutions in our standard lineup that allow us to do and pretty much address the full purchase order scenarios that you may be faced as a construction company. Well, the first scenario that we have is basically built out of the box with Timberscan. Because the eForms product tool set comes with Timberscan, it comes with some predefined forms and things, and one of those happens to be a purchase order. Now, the beauty of the eForms tool is it automates the process. It allows us to take and build an eForm or an electronic form. We can integrate that form with Sage or Timberscan so that we can get what we call entry point validation. We can use routing and approval, which makes our system more of an application builder than what we would consider a forms tool, because we actually can use routing functionality to route the form for approval. And we also store all the data. Everything that you enter into the form, we store the data so that it can be utilized in other applications, and you'll see that here in the purchasing scenario. And then also at the end of the day, basically, you can take just about any form that you have in your company and make it electronic. But today, specifically, we're going to talk about the purchasing process. Now, in the first step of the purchasing process, generally, you're going to create a purchase order. And that purchase order can be done either at the desktop. It could be done on a mobile device like a phone. It could be untethered from the internet. It could be tethered. We have what we call a mobile app, which is one that works with the internet, and the other one that works just standalones, and it synchronizes. Or it could be done on desktop. And basically what happens, you'll start the purchase order. You'll then be able to route and approve the purchase order if you want to, and this is a workflow option that you can do. And then once you've submitted that purchase order, it automatically goes into Timberscan as a supporting document. Now, this is for field POs and things like that, and I'm going to show you a demonstration on that here in just a minute. But those are the kind of purchase orders that generally don't have a commitment associated with it. And it's just basically you might want that purchase order in the system so that you can match it up with the invoice. The second thing we have, of course, is the receiving process. So whenever the receiving ticket comes in or the delivery ticket comes in, you can snap a picture of that delivery ticket and bring it straight into the system and also store it in Timberscan as a supporting document, so that when the invoice does come in, you can actually do a 3-way match. Now, why would you want to do that? Well, a couple of advantages that you have. If you're routing your invoices today and you go to a purchase order system like this, when you get the purchase order and the receiving ticket in and the invoice hits the door and there's no difference, then basically you don't really need to route that for approval. So you can, if you have a high volume of invoices, you can take and eliminate all the invoices that have to go to the project managers for approval, and have some of those, because of the purchasing system, you can actually pre-approve those as those invoices come in. But like I said, that's our first option that we have in purchasing, which doesn't really involve Sage at all. It's just strictly a field purchase order and receiving ticket that goes into Timberscan to be matched up with the invoice. The second just adds the commitment process. So this is an actual application that we sell. And in that particular case, the purchase order gets generated, it gets approved and reviewed. You could send that PO to the vendor, but then we not only update Timberscan, but we also send it and create a commitment in Sage. So now it reduces all the double entry. So, and because we have that entry point validation, like I said earlier, then basically what happens is that I'm now capable of taking that data and sending it straight into Sage's commitment module in job cost, so that now whenever the invoice comes in, you'll be able to bounce it off against a commitment and have an open commitments report. And again, you'll still be able to match up the documents because those are going to go into Timberscan as supporting image documents as you go along. And then, of course, our third option is what we call our advanced purchasing. And this is for the folks that actually currently use the purchase order system of Sage today, and they want to move to a cloud solution or a mobilized solution. We have in the advanced solution for purchasing, you have an add-on that you can go all the way through inventory. We also have a bill of material buyout process that's built into the purchasing system. So right now today, those are the three options that we have, and our advanced version has the opportunity now to basically go, and take it a lot further along down the road. So let's go ahead and get started here. I'm going to go ahead and get out of here, and I'm working in a simulated environment, which is going to be an iPad. And as I go into the system, you can see how it's organized. Very simple. It's got big buttons that you can touch. If you're going to go into the system here, you're going to go in. You can either have forms that are specific to you, maybe a vacation request form or a human resources form, or you can have forms that are specifically for the job. You can also be an approver, and this might be your inbox, where items that need to be approved are going to come in. It's going to send you an email, and you can come to your inbox and approve them. So I'm going to go ahead in here, and I'm just going to go into my forms. I'm going to go into my jobs. And since I only have the Clackamas job that I work with, and that's the only job that I see. Now, you're going to notice I have a lot of forms in here. Now, each one of those forms represents an application because they may have different functionality within the form. You may store the information different. You may do something different with it. But these are the actual forms that you have that are specific to this particular job. Now, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to go fill out this purchase order form. Now, what's really unique about the system is that it's very, very simple to use. It automatically gives it a number. And you'll notice if I were on my iPad and I were touching the buttons, it has modals and you just touch it. You remember I said that it had entry point validation. So it uses like a Google search. So I can say Ace Drywall and it's going to go look into Sage's vendor file and give me that information. Now, since I only do the Clackamas job, then basically that's the only job that's going to be available for me to look up. And you'll notice that I have the actual job. And then, of course, when I get down to the level of the items, I can put in the cost codes. Now, at this point in time, basically, it's going to auto-total my PO. I'm going to say that I submitted that particular item. And let's say this is material for shower. Okay, now, at this level here, I'm going to come in and start costing this out. So I'm going to type in shingles, let's say concrete finishing. That's my cost code. These cost codes are cascaded by that job. Okay, so at the end of the day, you don't have a whole bunch of cost codes you have to go look for. This might be, I don't know, let's just say this is grout. Okay, and say I'm buying 10 of these at $25 a pop. Okay, now I can also have multiple distributions. So if you can think about if you're entering a commitment in the system, then you would want to have this ability to be able to put in, different functionalities here and so on and so forth. And let's say this is other and say I want one. I could do lump sums instead of, doing it that way. But basically, you can see I can distribute that particular purchase order down to the actual individual item level. If I had received a quote, I could attach a picture of the quote. Now, all of this is done in a mobile environment. So just kind of keep that in mind. Now, at this point in time, I may need to go ahead and send this around for approval. So what I'm going to do is come over here and I'm going to route this to myself just so that you can kind of see how that looks. But basically what's going to happen is that I'm going to go ahead and route this to myself, and it's going to go through there and it's going to test the fields because there's certain required fields that you can set up and so on and so forth. I'm going to get an email notification that says, hey, you've got something in your inbox that to approve. And so it'll pop up here in just a little bit. I'll come back to that here in just a minute. And then basically what's going to happen is that it's now come into my inbox. Okay. Now, if my field guys were pushing this out, I could come in here and take a look at this and say, oh, look, here it is. So I can actually open this up, and when I open it up, I'm physically seeing exactly what they entered. So I can come down here and look at this, and maybe I don't like the way they coded it, or maybe I want to make some changes. If not, I could literally come over here, and I could basically come in here and push this PO. Maybe I need to approve it. Let me go ahead and sign that. And I'm going to say this is Fred. And then I may want to come over here and save it, and then I'm going to go ahead and send this out to the vendor. So at this point in time, basically after it saves, I'm going to come in here and physically come in here and take this particular PO and send it to the vendor. Now, out of the box, we have this form, we have some receiving tickets, we have the form design, all of that's basically built into the system. But at any given time, you can change that. So if you wanted to make the form look different, if you wanted certain terms and conditions on it, you could do so. But the idea behind it is that basically what you're doing is that you're coming through the system and you're going through and you're producing the actual purchase order form that's going to get sent out to the vendor. But if I'm done with this right here, then all I have to do is mark it for approval, and then I can export this to the CSV, and that CSV file will automatically go into the commitment module, and you'll import that right into Sage's accounting software. So that piece right there is how that actually works. Now, the second piece of this, let's go back through here, and we're going to go over here to the jobs again, and let's say they do receiving on here. So you're going to have a receiving ticket that basically comes in, and this is out of the box. Again, you can change the verbiage and how you want that done. But if a person's in the field, let's say they receive this from, Ace Drywall, you see all the lookup functionality here. This is for Clackamas job. And then text, this is, a material for shower. If I knew the receiving ticket number, 123 or 120, let me fix that. PO or commitment. If it were on there, I could put it in there. If not, I don't have to put it. These are all informational fields. But generally what you would do is come over here, and if you were on your mobile phone or you were on your iPad, you would just come over here and basically just snap a picture of the delivery ticket. And I've got a little image here, so I'm just going to go ahead and pull that in. Let's just say that's a delivery ticket in this particular case here. But you can see right away that that what you have is that you have the ability to be able to do this, and then you can go ahead and submit this form. And then by virtue of submitting the form, it now goes over to Sage, and inside of Sage, it's going to do the multiple match. And I'll show you that here in just a minute. So that what you see right there is the first two options of our purchasing solution. The third option is what we call our advanced purchasing. Now, in the advanced purchasing module, and let me go ahead and get this cranked up, and I'll talk through this a little bit as we go. In the advanced purchasing module, it's really just a carve out of our inventory and material management system. So when you see how this works, you start out with purchasing, but you can add bill of material management, you can add bidding, you can add inventory control, you can add work order to it. So it has the ability to grow out, so but you still have the same benefits and advantages that you have with the purchasing side. And then you can use the inventory database as a material database. You may not track inventory, but you might want to keep it in the system just for lists and things like that. Now, let me go ahead, and I'm going to do one other thing while this is getting started here. I'm going to go into my system, remote desktop system here, and go ahead and log in. All right, so now in this particular case, let's see, Core Cloud 1, nope, that's not it. Let me get into here. There we go. So in the advanced purchasing solution, one of the cool pieces of that is that we have two methods of purchasing. So when you go into the purchase order system, you can either do what we call material-based purchasing, or you can do a traditional purchase order. The material-based purchasing is set up so that you could actually be in the field with an eForm, and your guys could actually go through and say, hey, I need this, 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 and this, and submit it. And then it would come into the purchasing system as an open worksheet, of which the purchasing department could then go in and take the items that came in, assign it to a vendor, send it out for a quote, and manage the whole buying process from within that worksheet. and never have to do any real double entry, because the field is requesting, the items in the field to come into the system. Now, one of the cool pieces of that is that because of the fact that our purchasing system has what we call job locations, you can actually, if you attach it to our bill of material management system, you literally can come in and bring in the material for that particular job, the bill of material and the quantity that you had. And then from that standpoint, you'll be able to go through there. When the guys in the field are looking at material, they only see the items that you brought in from the estimate. So it's a real powerful tool. And as you go through the process of doing the advanced purchasing, the material worksheet is one of the more powerful parts of the system. So what I'm going to do is come over here and just kind of go in there and work through. Now we're working from home here, so I'm having a little bit of a speed issue here, but it should pick up here in just a second. But basically what ends up happening is that in the purchasing worksheet, when you go into that particular worksheet, you'll see I have some already done here. Well, let's go ahead and take a look at a couple of these right here. So I'm going to go in and edit that worksheet. And what you're going to find is that once I go into the edit mode on here, that it's going to go through there and show you all the material that has been requested from the field. Now, in this case, it has some default vendors, but you see how you can have different vendors for each item? You can even process the items at a different time. You can come over here and when you create this export file, it creates an RFQ that you can send to the vendor. So whenever those items do come in, for instance, and you're looking at this, you can come in there and say, okay, I need to go ahead and the field needs this number of items. You can go in there and say, okay, I'm going to go ahead and pick up this item. They need one, and maybe that's the right cost and that's for that vendor or whatever. If not, I can come in here and change that cost. Let's say it's $1.50 now because I'm only buying one. And I can work this all the way through and have this set up to where now I'm ready to order this item. I can come in here, save it, and create the PO. Well, let's say that I want 2 of these. I want to come over here and I need to order, instead of transferring, let me do this one right here. Instead of this one, I'm going to come over here and do this one, and I'm going to order 10. Okay, and let's say the cost on that right there is that cost is correct. So when I come over here and I save the changes on here, now what's going to happen when I create the PO, this is going to go through and automatically create a purchase order. So it's a step in front of the purchase order system that allows me the ability to manage material. And what's really unique is I can extend this out to the mobile devices so the guys in the field can be doing their requests. And then when they submit those requests, they'll automatically come into a worksheet. The PO purchasing agent or the project manager can work the worksheet. And then basically you can see these are the 2 POs that were created for those 2 items. And then from here, I can go through there and basically route it for approval if I want to. This particular demo doesn't have that. I can preview it. I can generate my own forms. So you can have different forms there. I can edit down here and put in specifics about shipping details, vendor details, and so on and so forth. And then once I'm done with this, I would just submit this PO. And once I've done that, it automatically takes that information and sends the PO to the vendor, and then sends all that information into commitments and also sends it over to Timberscan. So it does kind of the same thing as our second option that we had. The only difference is we front loaded it to where now you have a materials database or an items database, and now you can do what we call purchase by material versus a purchase by PO. And of course, the traditional PO works the same as you would normally see, but this is kind of how that works. And then when you do the receiving, the one advantage that you have on the receiving here is that whenever you do the receiving in the field, that receiving ticket can basically come over here and be processed from the field automatically into this particular PO. So if I'm ready to go ahead and do receiving on here, I can go ahead and bring that PO, that receiving ticket into here, and then I can come in and create a receiving transaction and then look over here, and you can see it automatically defaults the stuff that I was going to get. So in this case right here, if maybe I got 5 of these or whatever, it manages all the back orders and everything else. Now once I upload my images for the receipt, if it came in from my mobile device, then those images would already be there, which is a packing slip. Once this is actually done, then what ends up happening is all of that information gets sent over to Timberscan. And once it's in Timberscan, then basically that's where the real value point comes into play. Because once you're in Timberscan, let me back out of here, and you go through the process of processing an invoice, then what ends up happening is that, let me, here's one right here. I think I got some stuff on it. Let's take a look. When I go to process this invoice, then all of that supporting paperwork is right behind it that I can go pick it up. Now, in the advanced purchasing system, what's really unique about this is that once I've done that, now I've already attached this here, but you can see right here as I go through the process of this, and I've got that invoice on the screen. When I hit supporting documents, then you'll notice, come on, when I hit supporting documents, it's going to go through there and it's going to go find all those documents that I sent over automatically. And I can come over here, and let's say this happens to be the receiving ticket on this one right here, then I can come up here and basically just go in and attach it. Let's see what I got here. Let me hit this receiving ticket there. I don't have any images in here. And there we go. And I want to go ahead and attach this. I select it here, and whoops, too fast on the gun. And when I attach, I now bring in those documents and attach it to the invoice. So stepping back, the big picture is that we're eliminating a lot of data entry and we're starting the process in the field. So what you're actually thinking about here, and this hopefully helps you on the virtualization, when we start talking about what this campaign is about, which is basically automating the whole process, is that now by virtue of putting this in the people's hands out into the field, you streamline the process. It's more accurate. You don't have these emails floating all over the place where people can't, oh, I didn't know you got to ask me for that or whatever. It's, you got a good system. But what's unique is if I'm the API processor and I'm working from home, I have all this documentation that's getting updated in my system, so I can literally process invoices without ever touching paper. And that's kind of the story that we're trying to tell today, is that you don't really need to create any of the paper. You don't need those filing cabinets or anything like that. We can take the same workflow process and give it to you so that you're still working with images of that information. You can always print it out. It's just that basically what you're dealing with here is the ability to be able to take that work process, that purchase order work process, and in one of the three solutions, be able to pass that all the way through to Timberscan, all the way through to Sage, and have all of this information in front of you so that you can look at the receiving tickets, look at the purchase order, match it against, the invoice. If the coding is correct, because it got pulled from the commitment, then basically from there, you can process the invoice and route it off to approval, or you can send it straight into Sage because you have supporting paperwork to back all that up. So that being said, I'm pretty much finished with my presentation. Leanne, I will hand this back over to you.
Sure. Thank you, Steve. All right. I guess at this point, we'll go ahead and open it up for questions to the audience. I'm going to check the chat window. I just want to thank everyone for attending today, and a special thanks to TAG for hosting this session. I hope everyone found it helpful and informative. And I hope that everyone can join us next Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific time to take a closer look at Timberscan 300 and see how you can automate your AP approvals and move to a paper-free process for accounts payable. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.